for this important presentation, and I think what better way to start a new session on technical development with my favorite topic. So basically I'm here to give you an overview of foreign direct investment. Although we have specialized verticals for various domains, taxation, M&As, accounting, audit, but this is something which is impacting each one of us. So we thought that maybe it's time to refresh what has happened and how much India as a whole achieved in terms of doing improvements in the system, and how we are really encouraging foreign investors to be trusting India, investing in India, and overall leading to the growth of the nation as a whole. So I think I'll give you certain statistics before I go into my technical slide. Is that as you can see here, that foreign companies are quite bullish on investing in India, because India has shown certain qualities of being an international investment hub. We've shown our mettle in service sectors. We've been making improvements in our manufacturing markets, manufacturing policies. So it's an overall ideal place at the moment since last 5 years, and I think under the current domain, the government policies that have been implemented will see this kind of a boom for next many more years to come. So India is becoming increasingly aware that we need to attract foreign investment to improve the quality of services, quality of goods that are available here, and as an overall image in the international market. Foreign direct investment play a very important role as and when we are talking about these variables. Foreign investment is technically, let's say on a softer side, it really means that foreign countries or foreign investors have really started believing in the story that India has been projecting. They feel that it will be profitable for them. First and foremost, that if they invest in India, they'll be able to get a good return out of India. Of course, an Indian population is becoming increasingly aware about the international product. What is available in India is highly in demand, with foreign investors, and of course foreign investors who are selling up outside and Indians who are buying outside, they really want the products to be localized, the prices to come down, and that's the reason that foreign investment regulation play a very important role. So these are the top 5 investing countries which are quite active in FDI, UK and USA. Well, often been stated, Mauritius being tax haven, so it's primarily preferred investment kind of a jurisdiction for companies which are operating into financial sector. So most of the foreign institutional investors are investing through Mauritius. Of course, India has now negotiated treaty with Mauritius and as well as Singapore. So we would see a lot of based on our last year's statistics, we observed that at this point of time, Japan is the largest investor in the manufacturing sector. Of course, Singapore also invests in infrastructure sectors. However, even from Singapore, a lot of investment from Japan is being routed. So if you really see this list, you can actually have a fair idea as to who all are investing and why we're getting so much of kind of interest from Eastern, let's say Asian economies such as Japan or China or Korea. So that's primarily because India has been able to improve its regulations as far as they relate to foreign investment. India has been continuously trying to improve its image for ease of doing business in India. We started off in 1991, we all know that. So last 26 years we've done significant improvement in the systems, in the policy. We used to read in the textbook that there is Inspector Raj in India. So what exactly it was? It was primarily that for everything and every permission, approval, registration, license, you really needed someone to evaluate you, and that someone would also be empowered to do inspection and then guide you as to how better you can do your business, or what you should not be doing, or how you can improve it. This led to a lot of interference, a lot of difficulties for investors, especially foreigners, because they already had those highly developed techniques, highly developed ideas, how they want to do it and how they would implement in India. And since we were lagging behind, we telling them how better to produce in India was probably not completely in sync. So India took conscious steps for last 25-26 years, and we gradually opened the sectors depending upon the demand, depending upon the change in social fabric, depending upon consumption habit. We really opened our markets to foreign investors, and today at any point of time, at anywhere, any market that you go, you are flushed with foreign brands, you are flushed with new alternatives, and foreign companies are competing now to get attention from Indian buyers. So that's the importance that the FDI regulations, which have been continuously been liberalized, are playing in each one of us life. These are the top sector. I'm not sure India has consciously, I would not say everything is bad, but India has been very conscious about what sector it want to promote first, the priority sector. So you see a lot of core sectors here. Services remain the highest, is one of our specialization for Indians, that we are very good with services, be it IT or financial services or BPO services. So service sector attracted highest FDI over the past, I think since 2000. These data are from year 2000. So last 18 years, 17 years, these figures have been complied. Telecommunication, construction, computer software, trading, chemicals, power, metallurgical, hotels, and food processing industry. So you will see that there is a pattern, and whatever India is exporting, India is now considering, instead of exporting raw, whether it can actually help the foreign investor to process it in India. So if you really see that these sectors could of course be relating to niche technology, but they could also be implying an intention that why only import from India, better make in India. So that's probably is the idea right now with which our government is taking effective steps. It is growing the confidence of foreign investors. Of course, in today's date, we have one of the most dynamic Prime Minister. So the whole idea is that, of course, we've arrived in service sector, but what is next? India at this point of time enjoys maximum number of employable population. So people between, let's say, within the bracket of 20 years to 35, 40 years, India has the maximum employable people, young population, which can contribute to the industrial revolution now. As I see a lot of investment happening in the industrial sector, industrial parks, manufacturing sector, people trying to localize. We have foreign cars on our roads. Maximum of them are, let's say Japanese or US brands. Everyone is taking conscious step how they can localize and improve, at the same time drop the prices so that they become more competitive. Next. So there could be various modes of funding with investment. We are not touching on other important topics as well, but you must know that and the money could come in various formats. For example, it can be invested as equity, it can be given as a loan, external commercial borrowing, I'm sure you all know, loan from parent company or supplier or foreign investor, foreign currency convertible bonds, right issues, depository receipts, bonus shares, warrants, new term called masala bond, which is technically kind of a substitute to external commercial borrowing, convertible debentures, which can be converted into equity, and preference shares. Next. So there are two types of, let's say, very simple term, there are two types of foreign direct investment. One could be in greenfield, which could be starting afresh. Means any foreign company which comes to India, they evaluate India, do their research, and finally they feel confident to do it themselves. They would probably start by themselves, be any kind of a structure, but if they don't really do an acquisition in India, or if they don't really invest in India into an existing company, they're technically called greenfield. It's a greenfield. Brownfield means that if really, instead of doing it by themselves, they find a partner, a trustworthy partner who can actually share the risk and help them liaise with the Indian market much better. So in those sectors, brownfield is clicking right now. Also, there are certain sectoral restrictions, which doesn't, technically that means that in certain sectors in India, you cannot have 100% foreign equity. So that really implies that you need to identify a partner, be it government or be it any company registered in India, owned by Indians, to do business in India. I'll be touching those topics in brief later on. So these are a kind of a typical way in which a foreign company can invest in India. For example, there could be, again broadly, there could be two routes. One could be approval route and one could be automatic route. Approval route means certain sensitive sector such as media, defense, railways are evaluated, your proposal is evaluated first, and there are certain sectoral conditions. For example, in multi-brand retail trading or single brand retail trading, there are certain conditions that you need to meet. But there are certain, majority of the sectors are now under automatic route. So except very limited strategic sectors, Indian government has liberalized all the sectors which are attractive to foreign investors, and wherein foreign investor can come on their own without any Indian joint venture partner, without any stake from the Indian shareholders. They can do it on their own. But typically they could be as a representative of parent company, let's say a branch office which can do trading, a liaison office, or a project office. If they decide to do it themselves as their own standalone entity, they can actually be setting up a wholly owned subsidiary or a joint venture company with Indian partner, or as a limited liability partnership, which has been recently liberalized. But otherwise you see a lot of imported stuff in Indian markets. So either it is imported or it has been franchised to the Indian distributors, or someone is actually doing let's say wholesale trading on their behalf, and they are brought to the Indian markets. Next, I think I've covered broadly, but just to glance them, have a glance, is that liaison office, the advantage is the temporary structure. The companies only come here to study. They want to have their own setup in India. Of course, they can research the Indian market from abroad also, but if they really want to kind of touch and feel, so they really need to hire office, hire staff. So that's where rep office or liaison office is a short-term option for them for 3 years. Maybe it can be extended for another 3 years. However, the disadvantages is highly restricted. It cannot do any commercial activity. Branch office are of course very popular with companies which doesn't want to take too much risk onto themselves, and they are only keen to tap the Indian market for export and import purpose, do the trading purpose. So, or let's say IT companies, shipping companies, airline companies, which just want a representation, and of course they want a flexibility to be doing commercial operations from India. So that's where they prefer a branch office structure. Both let's say a project office and a branch office have a different taxability as compared to the domestic company, because they're both technically foreign companies, so they are taxed at a higher bracket as compared to the domestic company, which could be the subsidiary or a joint venture or a limited liability partnership. Yes, I think companies are independent structure. It has its own board of directors, own shareholders, so it can do its own decision making, and as far as flexibility is concerned in terms of operations, can do anything which is authorized by its own charter, irrespective what has been done in the parent company. So if there is a company and it is allowed by its charter to do X activity, and maybe it's a small activity in the home country, it's perfectly fine, because a company registered in India is at par with a domestic company. Let's say a company formed by a local investor, an Indian, a foreign investor which sets up a company or subsidiary in India, they both at par, except that they're dealing with the parent company are closely scrutinized, but if it is on arm's length basis, there are hardly any issues. Joint venture is primarily suitable for sectors which are not, let's say, either they are investment sensitive. It's a huge investment. For example, right now India is trying to create a hub for semiconductor, or they are too labor intensive. How to manage the local workforce, or they really need too much local expertise, or they need local distribution network, which probably, if a foreign company starts from scratch, it will of course reach, but it will take too much time. And why reinvent the wheel when there is a credible joint venture partner which you can collaborate, and actually you can take advantage of its network, and of course you can bring in your technology, and it's a win-win situation. Of course it has its own limitation, as in it's a dilution of stake and the profit get divided. Thanks. So this is again a kind of a summary, so I would rather skip it. You can take the slides later on. I think I'll skip this slide. So eligible investing list entities. So who all can actually be receiving foreign direct investment? So now moving towards the topic as to company registered in India. Partnership and proprietary concern can also, but there are certain restrictions. Limited liability partnership, which is a very flexible structure, highly matured format of partnership, and having advantages of a limited liability company. And trust. So venture capital, if any company want to take on, let's say, certain investment, a foreign company want to invest in multiple entities. India is actually booming with various ideas. There are new apps. There are a lot of different kind of business that are being coming up, a lot of new ideas. So venture capital is a person who's really invested in new ideas, new product, and new service lines. And there are certain guidelines for a venture capitalist. Let's say a foreign company which want to invest in a venture capital, it would need to follow certain defined regulations. Sectors in which FDI is not allowed. So, and probably you may not have noticed that there are hardly any. Lottery business, it's been gone for long. Gambling, no one want to have a FDI in a gambling sector. Chit fund, these are financial entities, I'm sure you know. Trading in transferable development rights. Real estate. So India has been, the reason India has been conscious and been able to preserve, let's say there's no real estate bust. For example, worldwide there was a global meltdown in real estate, but India actually was not, it was insulated. So the reason is that India doesn't allow FDI into real estate sector. It allows FDI into real estate business. That means you can do construction, you can do development, but you cannot come with your money and speculate in real estate market. So if you really do an investment into a hotel, build it up, expand it, or even if it is not working as it is, you can sell it, it's allowed. However, if you really start picking up real estate properties in India and just acting as a broker, purchasing and selling, that what creates a notional demand, and it can actually heat in the market, prices can go up, and once the foreign investor exits, after making the profit, it's like share market, it will come crashing. So that's something that you need to take care. Otherwise, everything is allowed. What are the downstream investment? For example, there are a lot of multinational which have multiple subsidiaries in India. Some of the companies have more than 10, more than 20 or 30 subsidiaries in India. So how do they really control? Is everything controlled from abroad? Every decision or every policy is rooted to the headquarter outside India? No. So there are certain holding structure, there are certain investing companies, there are certain let's say investing come operating. So if a company which is doing fantastic in Indian market and they really want to create a step down subsidiary, for example, they want to hive off their marketing operation into a separate company, or they really want to separate the R&D function from their own factory which is now grown substantially to a separate company, or from the start they don't want the R&D to be shared with the existing setup, they would probably set up a new company, but the investment can be routed through the existing Indian company for better control. So in those scenario, we really refer to the regulations for downstream investment, as in a non-resident entity invest into an Indian entity which could be a subsidiary of a foreign company, and then that subsidiary further invest into a step down subsidiary. So that's what is called downstream, and there are certain regulations. So a downstream investment is allowed only in operating or operating come investing entity. Operating entity, by it's a very generic term, is that if I am manufacturing anything and I really want to outsource a particular segment of my business, and that too is generating operating revenue, so it's called operating subsidiary. If I'm only investing in another subsidiary which is I'm not doing any business, so technically I am only an investing company, so then the guidelines I have to be there will be different guidelines, because if I am not doing anything, I am only investing, so there are certain restrictions on investing companies. Foreign investment in operating investment companies are freely permitted, but there are certain guidelines. If I am investing a foreign company which have a subsidiary in India and that subsidiary invests further, I cannot do anything which was not allowed to the first subsidiary itself. So by example, maybe you can understand it better. Company Z is a foreign company, invest in company Y, which is a company registered in India, which further invests in company X. Next. So case 1, where the company Y has foreign investment. So you understood the scheme, right? Company Y is an Indian company, it invests in company X and it only invests 26%, let's say. If the company Y has foreign investment less than 50%, then company X would be the foreign downstream investment in company X, it will be only restricted to the investment which is there in the company Y. Next. Scenario 2, company Y has foreign investment of 75%, that is majority is held by a foreign investor. So the company Y invests 26% in company X. So entire shareholding in company X will be treated as FDI. So this company has 75% and it invests 26% in this company. So entire 26% will be considered as FDI, but there is no direct investment from any foreign investor. Similarly, if company Y, which has 75% investment from foreign and it invests 80% in company Y X, so the total investment of 80% will be considered as foreign direct investment. Then by implication, it means that company X would also be regulated by the same regulation which company Y is subjected. I think the arrows are not very clear here, but company Y has a wholly owned subsidiary company X, where the company X is a wholly owned subsidiary of company Y. There is only 75% would be treated as indirect foreign equity and 25% will be treated as resident. It only holds 75%. So there are certain other criteria. Next. So the direct foreign investment, indirect foreign investment means the total foreign investment in the Indian company. So that's how this is of course is a very developed concept, because when you really look at listed companies which have investment through multiple registered local entities in India, so at that point of time you really need to look at these regulations, because it may appear that there is only a minority foreign investor, but if you really go through these, if you really plan and actually study these regulations, a lot of Indian companies were actually notified by the government of India because they were breaching the foreign FDI regulation. Specifically, let's say long time back, one of the largest Indian private sector bank was actually wholly owned by foreign. So I'm not going to name any company here, but these regulations, for example, if banking sector doesn't allow more than 75% as foreign investment, if there are investment from companies which are registered in India into that particular bank, maybe they'll be able to breach, or they might have been breaching the foreign investment threshold in that particular bank. So it was a highly debated topic a few years ago, and then the government came out with these regulations and streamlined all these FDI concept in such sensitive sectors. So this is a summary of, let's say I try to summarize what is allowed, how much is allowed. So I'll just probably pick up certain important one. I will not go into complete schedule, but for example, agriculture. India only prohibits investment into agricultural land. So no foreign investor can invest into agricultural land in India, but they are free to invest in agricultural activities, be it production of grain, flour, vegetable, honey, or farming, animal husbandry. So everything is allowed under 100%. Mining is now allowed under 100%, except mining and mineral separation of titanium bearing minerals and ores. That is regulated by government because these rare earth metals are really can have multiple or really strategic applications. Petroleum, natural gas, if you really see, exploration activities are 100% permitted, and refining by public sector you can only have 49% without any disinvestment or dilution of domestic equity in the existing PSU, public sector undertakings, can only have 49% under automatic route. Next, amongst, let's say, defense is a right now is one of the very hot topics, because India really want to localize a lot of arms and ammunition that it right now buy from outside. So we have made certain regulation, we have liberalized the sector. We are encouraging foreign companies to keep the technology with themselves, but if they really can set up a joint venture and manufacture in India, the cost of acquisition becomes significantly cheaper. So that's one sector which government is really trying to even set up defense cluster. So it's not just about the policy, it has multiple application, because government has taken infrastructural measures to ensure that the companies in these sectors can also do good in India. Print media, of course, no one want to have a hostile print media, so it's a highly regulated sector, except where it is only related to certain scientific journal. No religion, no politics. Civil aviation is 100%. That's why you see a lot of foreign airline are now stepping up their operations in India. Transport service, mostly 100%. Next, trading. So cash and carry, we call it cash and carry wholesale trading. So that is allowed 100%. But if it is e-commerce activity and an operation which is actually buying locally manufactured goods, a foreign company can create an entity in India and buy locally manufactured goods and sell it on the online portal. However, it is not allowed to buy from outside, do the electronic marketing and sell it in India. So typically we are restricting sale of foreign goods by foreign companies in India. So as long as the domestic entity is owned and operated by Indians, even a foreign company can operate it, but as long as the shareholding is with the Indian citizens, it is freely permitted to be done on online. So that's why we have a lot of e-commerce websites which are very popular, and foreign investors are only investing in these companies to a certain threshold, which of course is multi-brand retail trading. You can see 51%. And then railways, 100% has been allowed. Banking private sector, I just gave an example of 74%. Next. So I think there are different sectors, but let's say pharmaceutical is one of the highly, one of the strategic sector that in which Indian companies are doing good. Indian drugs are cheaper. We can manufacture expensive drugs at very low cost. So that's the reason that the government of India has liberalized the pharmaceutical investment in pharmaceutical sector to 100% if it is a greenfield. If a foreign investor is acquiring an existing pharmaceutical company in India, then it goes through the approval process. Next. So this is typically a case study. I would just summarize it. Is that we all like aerated drinks, but these policies have been continuously in the, they've been debated, or there were a lot of nationalization issues, but a company which we are right now talking, they were here in India in 1974 also, and that's when India really started doing nationalization, and they were asked to drop their shareholding less than 40%, and they were asked to step down equity in the, they can retain the equity in the technical side, but they were asked to do a lot of offloading in favor of Indian partners. So this company refused, and they protested, and 3 decades back they went out. However, when they came back in 1977, this company left India, and after, let's say, liberalization started happening in 1997, it came back again, because 1991 a new industrial policy came, and we liberalized a lot of sectors. We removed a lot of restrictions. Even then, this company, because even then when the government of India was saying that you can invest 100% in aerated drinks business, it kind of identified a joint venture partner, and 49% was actually 49-51 joint venture was created, and this company, I think, is one of the largest supplier of aerated drinks in India now. So this is one example, but there are others. The FDI sector is evolving. For example, we had so many joint ventures: Hero, Honda, Tata Docomo, Kawasaki, Bajaj. There are so many other examples, but if you see, they were initially joint ventures, and then they became separate, because the market size in India is actually expanding faster than the regulation, and also the kind of appetite of foreign investors is so high in India that once they understand that India is not too bad as it's been projected in media abroad, and it has certain policies which one, if taken care properly through professional mode, it can actually open up a very big market for them. Suzuki is a very classic example, is that they came up, they had a joint venture, and now they've just created another entity which manufactured a car and was exported back to Japan. So a Japanese car automobile manufacturer investing in India, becoming the first car for every Indians. I'm sure our parents, everyone was using the Maruti car as the first one, and now India is actually making Baleno, and we are exporting it to Japan. So that's a change in the entire scenery. So we really need to understand these regulations. We really need to ensure that we explain this to our clients clearly, so that the apprehensions which are otherwise not based on facts can be addressed. And of course, if it really means guiding them professionally, we are guiding them professionally. So technically, this time, let's say next 5 years, 10 years, even today in newspaper, every day in the media, there are certain measures which government of India is trying to improve ease of doing business. So we as a professional should be very much updated about these changes. We have a responsibility to educate our clients, to understand these important changes and accordingly help them to do business with ease in India. So I think that some kind of closes my presentation. If you have any question, I'm here, feel free to ask me. 45 minutes. You might have, maybe you had a feeling that it really not applies to me, but as you would grow in the profession, you would really understand that I am as much as a tax person as not as Pankaj, slightly lower, but these regulations would equally be impacting your life. When you really see, let's say a client who's doing business and they really ask you to do a kind of a evaluation of their systems, accounts. So as an auditor, of course, if they really are against a certain regulation, you need to highlight them. As a tax advisor, there are a lot of cross-border investments, so you need to guide them as to which jurisdiction would be most favorable. As accountant, of course, everything goes into account, so everything is relevant for our compliance team. M&A, of course, I'm from business advisory, but one thing is that anything that you learn will be doing you good. So if you come across anything, for example, today you devoted 1 hour of your time to this session, you would have gained something, and I think it will just come out naturally at the right time if you really did justice to yourself sitting here attentively. Thank you very much.